Good morning, my name is Catherine. I'm an interpreter at AIB and I'd like to talk to you a bit about different types of interpreting today. We have two main types, consecutive and simultaneous. Consecutive interpreting is when an interpreter listens to a speech, takes notes, and then delivers the speech to a target audience. In simultaneous, we're sitting in soundproof booths, listening to a speaker and interpreting the message at the same time. Situations where you might have these different types of interpreting. With consecutive, you're usually going to use that in small business meetings, say, after dinner speeches, for example, particularly bilingual events, press conferences, that sort of thing. Whereas simultaneous is used for multilingual events, big congresses and conferences, the type you see at the UN or the European Union institutions. There are another two types of interpreting, perhaps less well known. One is called chuchotage, that means whispered interpreting, and that's where you have an interpreter who'll sit just behind a client and be whispering in simultaneous the message to the client. And then you have liaison interpreting, where an interpreter will accompany someone to, say, a hospital visit, for example. So, as to the technique of these different types of interpreting, with consecutive, as I've mentioned, the interpreter takes notes. What's going to be very, very important in all interpreting, first and foremost, though, is to listen intently. To listen to a speaker, analyze the message, grasp the essence of what that speaker is saying. So we'll do that in consecutive. And then we use notes just to assist your memory. What you don't want to do, though, is write down every word. You're not going to try and scribble furiously everything down. For one thing, you're not going to be able to. And what would be very unfortunate is that you then turn back to your notes to start delivering your interpretation and find that you can't read a single word of your handwriting. So we use symbols usually and write down things like figures and names, but really working with your short-term memory. With simultaneous, as I said, you're in a soundproof booth and you're listening to a message with headsets, and I've brought my headphones here to show you. You can see they're very small, they're very lightweight. That means I'm not going to have a headache at the end of the day after 7 hours of wearing them. The sound quality is exceptional. That means I can have the volume down very low and keep my ears in good health over the course of my career. And what's very good about these, as you can see, I can move this piece out so that I can listen to the speaker in my left ear. That's my telephone ear. Interpreters always have one ear that they use to listen, and that's usually the side that they speak on the phone with. So I listen to the speaker in this ear. I wait until I've got a meaningful message. I'm not going to start interpreting word for word, or it'll be very difficult for my listener to understand the message. So I wait. When I've got a meaningful chunk that I can start interpreting, I interpret. While I'm doing that, I'm listening to myself with this ear so that I can regulate what I'm saying, make sure it's all correct, that it's pronounced properly, and so on. And at the same time, I'm listening to the next piece that's coming in from the speaker. As you can probably imagine, that's quite intense mentally. So we only work for 30 minutes, usually in simultaneous, before handing over to a colleague. So that's to technique. And lastly, I'd like to just talk a little bit about the pros and cons, both from the perspective of the client and also the interpreter, these different techniques. With consecutive, as I've said, you don't need booths, you don't need headsets, you just need an interpreter and a notebook. So the cost is much lower, and that can be a bonus for a client. Also, clients sometimes like to have the interpreter there. They can ask questions to them and feel that they have that support. However, it may feel a little bit intrusive. Sometimes you don't want the interpreter to be there. From the interpreter's perspective, some interpreters love the feeling of contact with the clients, really feeling that they're bridging the language gap there and then in consecutive, and others are shyer and prefer to be in the safety of the booth. So in essence, this is the work we do in AIB. If you'd like to find out more about us or about our jobs, please get in touch. We'd be delighted to hear from you. Thank you.